Today on the Topping Show, Tucker Carlson's first Twitter episode hits 140 million views in one day. Bud Light is no longer America's #1 beer. 2 Alabama-based companies reach the Fortune 500. Google partners with the Mayo Clinic. Salesforce to pay employees to come back to work. GameStop fires CEO. And Little Mermaid suffers death by a six-pack ring holder. A box office flop. All that and much, much more on the Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of the Topping Show is sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or business owner and need a little assistance, you can reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Now, going on to the culture part of the podcast, you have Tucker Carlson launching his daily Twitter show. And it hits 104.8 million views in one day. And I should clarify, I'm not sure if this is a daily show, but it is his new platform he's building upon. Formerly, he's one of the most, actually, I was going to say one of the most, he was the most prominent reporter on Fox News until they moronically shot themselves in the foot and got rid of him. And his daily audience when he was on Fox News, traditional cable network, was nowhere near that number. Now, this video, again, within one day, 104.8 million views. It also helped out that Elon Musk actually tweeted it as well to support it. It already has 820 hearts or likes, or whatever the kids call the little thing, and 255 retweets. His followers on Twitter has now increased to 8.1 million, which is an astonishing amount of followers. Friendly reminder, I'm on Twitter at NIC Topping. Some bastard took the @topping, hasn't used it in 5 years. But I digress, @topping. Now, this first episode was about 10 minutes long, and one of the reasons I appreciate Tucker is because he actually gives alternatives to the traditional media, which you might have a different face and a different suit on Fox News, but a lot of the personalities, they might be a little different, but the core opinions and ideals are very much more often than not the same when you look at their competitors. Makes for a very boring end-user experience, which is why I really greatly appreciate other alternatives such as Timcast IRL, you got Ben Shapiro, Matt Wallace. They're all vastly more interesting than anything you'll see on CNN, though I still watch their website just because, again, you want to know what everyone is thinking. So let's play a little bit of Tucker's first episode.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. This morning it looks like somebody blew up the Kakhovka Dam in southern Ukraine. The rushing wall of water wiped out entire villages, destroyed a critical hydropower plant, and as of tonight puts the largest nuclear reactor in Europe in danger of melting down. So if this was intentional, it was not a military tactic, it was an act of terrorism. The question is, who did it? Well, let's see. The Kakhovka Dam was effectively Russian. It was built by the Russian government. It currently sits in Russian-controlled territory. The dam's reservoir supplies water to Crimea, which has been, for the last 240 years, home of the Russian Black Sea.
Now, every other media outlet immediately blamed Russia for this. And again, we've had false flags since the dawn of time. And I'm always skeptical, especially as the leaker who actually revealed the documents about the U.S. involvement in the Ukraine, as well as how well the Ukraine is doing, and as well as their offensive, which, again, all the media outlets told us it was a completely defensive position with the Ukraine. They were not going into Russia or affecting the Russian civilian population. Now we're seeing more and more stories contradict that initial statements from, again, every news outlet said it.
Fleet. Blowing up the dam may be bad for Ukraine, but it hurts Russia more. And for precisely that reason, the Ukrainian government has considered destroying it. In December, the Washington Post quoted a Ukrainian general.
Kind of reminds me of the Nord Stream pipeline. When people ask, oh yeah, it has to be Russia, and someone asked Biden, he kind of just chuckled. He goes, oh no, that pipeline won't be there. It won't be a problem. Which, again, saying the quiet power out loud.
Saying his men had fired American-made rockets at the dam's floodgate as a test strike. So really, once the facts start coming in, it becomes much less of a mystery what might have happened to the dam. Any fair person would conclude that the Ukrainians probably blew it up. just as you would assume they blew up Nord Stream, the Russian natural gas pipeline, last fall. And in fact, the Ukrainians did do that, as we now know.
Again, at the time, every single news outlet, they all said the same cliche thing. It was almost as if the writers were so lazy, they just copy-paste every single one. And it's a phenomenon you actually see on Twitter where a lot of the personalities will have to say the same bloody thing. And it always makes me raise my eyebrow and wonder how many of these people are actually individuals thinking for themselves, or if they're just a bot, or if they're just someone who goes with the flow.
It's not like Vladimir Putin is anxious to wage war on himself. Oh, but that's where you're wrong, Mr. and Mrs. Cable News consumer. Vladimir Putin is exactly that sort of man, the sort of man who'd shoot himself to death in order to annoy you. We know this from the American media, which wasted no time this morning in accusing the Russians of sabotaging their own infrastructure.
Of course.
Bill Kristol, the man who once told us that Saddam Hussein was responsible for 9/11, immediately denounced Putin as a war criminal and even more savagely compared him to Donald Trump. The rest of the pundit class made similar, clearly coordinated noises. Putin did it! Putin did it! And their reasoning was simple. Putin is evil, and evil people do evil things purely for the dark joy of being evil. In this specific case,
it's one of those things where also never underestimate thy enemy. It's a proverb, or perhaps more appropriately, an age-old saying that someone much more smarter than me said a long, long time ago. But never just think your enemy is stupid, whether it's political, business, philosophical. Always assume they're smarter than you think. Never underestimate them, because that's, of course, when you lose.
Putin attacked himself, which is the most evil thing you can do, and therefore perfectly in character for a man that evil. That was their explanation. No one who's paid to cover these things seemed to entertain even the possibility it could have been the Ukrainians who did it. No chance of that. Ukraine, as you may have heard...
Very true. Again, I've checked most major media outlets. I haven't seen that opinion once.
...is led by a man called Zelensky. And we can say for a dead certain fact that he was not involved. He couldn't have been. Zelensky is too decent for terrorism. Now, you see him on television, and it's true you might form a different impression. Sweaty and rat-like, a comedian turned oligarch, a persecutor of Christians.
A persecutor of fashion as well. If you're going to go to another country's government and ask for billions of dollars, as a wise Barney once said in How I Met Your Mother, suit up, Ted. Suit up, Zelensky. And again, we've given them over $100 billion, and he showed up in a sweater. I know that's his brand, but there's a time and place to suit up. I would say everywhere, but that's just my 3 cents.
A friend of BlackRock. But don't believe your own eyes. Actually, Mr. Zelensky is a very good man. The best, really. As George W. Bush once noted, he is our generation's Winston Churchill. Of all the people in the world, our shifty, dead-eyed Ukrainian friend in the tracksuit is uniquely incapable of blowing up a dam.
He's expanded. I thought he only had a sweater. Now he's a tracksuit. He's evolving, some might say.
He's literally a living saint, a man in whom there is no sin.
It is fascinating. More Americans seem to be flying the Ukrainian flag versus the United States flag. In fact, that seems to be the flag that's flown the least. You have political flags for other countries as well as political ideology in the United States. It's almost becoming a collectible if you see an American flag. The only exception being those who pretend to care about patriotism around the 4th of July. Well, I would say you should care about it the whole year, but that's just me.
That's why Lindsey Graham is so attracted to him. They're just two good people, hanging out together and being good. And like all good people, when they meet in person, they spend a lot of time talking about killing people and laughing like friends do. Here's the pair last week.
This is creepy.
Free or die.
Now you are free,
Yes.
and we will be.
And the Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent.
Thank you so much.
No, it's
That's the best money Lindsey Graham and the United States government has ever spent to kill Russians? That's the best money? Really? I mean, not only is that morally vacuous, because of course there are civilian casualties as well, but it's not even an ROI. I mean, the United States has invested in much better things throughout history.
Russia.
I mean, probably one of the most famous things being the GPS and the Jeep. both started off as government programs and subsequently benefited the civilian populations. I mean, thanks to them, we all know how to spot a Jeep. And they're usually, lifted 12 feet off the ground, and they usually stay on pavement. But once a year, you see one off-roading as well.
Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent, Graham says.
So it goes on for about 10 minutes, but that 3 minutes was more different than every other media outlet that I've seen over a year. Because again, no one is allowing an alternative perspective, especially on the mainstream media, which is yet another reason I think they're decreasing in popularity, because it's like diet news. It's not really news. It's just, I believe a wise man once said, primetime propaganda. Just, again, left, right, it all seems about the same on the cable network and the news box, but that's just my 3 cents. Now, thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. It greatly helps out the channel. Also, really appreciate the feedback. Also, don't forget to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone to stay safe and fight the good fight.